My name is Betty Braxton, and now I live in Los Angeles, California. I've been in Los Angeles since 1945, when I was 12 or 13, I think I got here. I was born in Evanston, Illinois. That's like just north of Chicago. If you're on one side of the street, you're in Chicago. The other side, you're in Evanston. It's a small town, very, very united. We used to go to the movies we'd have a quarter to go all day long. You could take the bus, buy popcorn, buy a candy bar, and get in the theater and get back home. But now we're talking about back in the early 40s, maybe, late 30s. And the reason that we came to California was my father froze his feet. And he said, we are not spending another year in this Illinois weather, and we didn't. My father was, I think, the ninth of children. He was a painter and maintenance man. He sort of did a whole bunch of stuff. I guess a lot of black men had to do a whole bunch of stuff then. And my mother and father got married when they were like 17 and 18, I think, something like that. My mother had been in a tuberculosis sanitarium. That was the time when I guess they put everybody that had tuberculosis in a sanitarium. So I spent a lot of time with my father. She was there for 6 months one time, I think 8 months, and we could go visit her. And we would sit in the field outside of the hospital and wave to her in the window, and that's all we could see of my mother during those years. And my mom got out of the TB sanitarium, got on a train, came to California, and found a place for us to stay. When we got here, it was during the Second World War still, and obviously where we lived, there had not been blacks in that area before, but the people that we found rooms with were living in a house they had rented from Japanese, because all the Japanese ornamentation was still in the house. The Japanese had been sent to internment camps during that time. My mother bought a house on 4th Avenue in Jefferson, 3421 4th Avenue. And we were the third black family in the block. And this was in 1946. Well, I went to Fauché Junior High School. So I ended up at Dorsey High School with a photography major, an art major with a whichever it goes. And it was mostly all white then. Kids look at my picture, class picture of Dorsey, that's not Dorsey, look at all those white kids. But they don't understand this whole area was all white during the early, 40s and 50s. I went to Dorsey in 1947. I graduated in 1950. And I remember my grade counselor wanted to take shorthand. And she very frankly told me, Betty, shorthand, there's no reason for you to take it because there's no place for black secretaries. So I never took shorthand, Ms. Daubenberger. Fortunately, I was working on the annual staff having photography. That was an automatic hookup. I graduated high school, went to City College for a while, met Frank Braxton. He was an artist there. He was at Cal State and I was at City College, and we met and got married. Frank was a very, very intense, Frank Braxton was a very, very intense person. Very straight ahead, very smart, very precise, and he was sure about what he was doing. When he put his foot down, he knew there was land under it, that kind of person. And he was liked. Benny Worsham, who was an animator at Warner Brothers, was taking vocal lessons from him. Frank being a singer also, there was a hookup. So he introduced Frank to Benny Worsham, and Benny found out that he liked to draw also. Benny then went to Warner Brothers and said to John Burton, I hear we don't hire any black animators here at Warner Brothers. And John said very sweetly, no, we've just never had any that qualified. And Benny said, I've got one. And they did, they had one. And Frank was there for, I guess I don't remember exactly how long, because it was during the time that widescreen came in. And Warner's closed down for, I think, a few months, and they let go all their help go. Well, Frank, being the only black one still in the industry, in that capacity as an artist, they wrote a letter to Disney saying, hey, he's cool, you can hire him. So Frank went to Disney, and Abe Levitow, who had gone to another studio, called him and said, I want you to come and be my assistant, which immediately took him from the low end, being an in-betweener, drawing the pictures between 1, 2, 3, 4, he'd do 3, 5, 7, 9. That was the in-betweener. So he stopped being an in-betweener and he went then to assistant animator, and that's when he moved up into that capacity. Frank moved up in the industry quite well. He was liked. I remember one time he was in the union, of course, and he was the president of the union, which was really unique because they didn't have enough black people in the union, period, to even be in the offices. So I think he was probably one of the first, if not the first, black officer in a union in Hollywood. When Frank was busy working on his career, I stayed busy working with my mother in real estate, taking care of the kids. I went and got a real estate license. My mother was a real estate broker, that's what I did. And I got a real estate license, sold real estate with her. It was interesting though also working in that era because he was working in an industry where it was basically all white. It really was all white. And the kids ended up in a nursery school in View Park that was at that time all white. And so we were the only black family there. And I remember because in-betweeners didn't make a whole lot of money at Warner Brothers, Frank had a job on Saturdays working on Vernon and Central, which was the heart of the black community. And I remember going over there one Saturday and I got out of the car and I was in cultural shock. All these black people went like, whoa! And it's like, hey, they don't know that I don't know that, this is not where I've been. But I remember that feeling of, whoa. It was so different to come from being in the nursery school because I was really wrapped up in being the wife, the mother, and the wife was with all these white people at Warner Brothers, and the mother was with all these at the nursery school. And then the working mother's, the wife of a working man, goes to Vernon and Central, and that's so totally black. I was in shock for a moment, just a quick moment, but I thought of it as funny. Then when Frank started in animation or started working with animation, there was a friend of his named Van Tyle Whitfield who had an organization called PASLA, Performing Arts Society of Los Angeles. And Frank worked with that organization to do a lot of stuff. They had the same thing that Inner City does. They had different acts. They had music, dance, art, and Frank brought animation there. And the Screen Cartoonists Guild gave him money for a live artist. Hanna-Barbera Studios gave him all the animation desks to use. Well, when Frank died, by his hookup with Van Tyle Whitfield, Van was working with Robert Hooks and Lonnie Elder on No Place to Be Somebody, a play. And they were going to do a benefit for PASLA, so I was helping them pull that together. And Roberta Flack, who's a singer, came in town, and she was at Shelley's Manhole around the corner from the Ivar Theater where No Place to Be Somebody was going to be showing. And we would go from the Ivar to Roberta's dressing room, and where she was, and talk to her and play with her. And she'd ask for something, I'd pick up a phone, and she'd say, wow, stuff's happening. And she said, man, would you come and work with me? I need a road manager. I didn't know what a road manager was. But that's how I started. So I told her, yeah, and I went to my job. At this point, I had started working for a title company. And the title company we were a black company. We did most of the titles for the 10 freeway. There were no women in that field at all, black or white, doing business development for a title company. And they gave me a company car and a credit card and carte blanche on what I wanted to do. So when Roberta would come in town, I would take my cute little company car and I'd go pick her up and we'd run all over whatever things that she had to do. But I was still doing the business development for the company. I went to work for Roberta. She was working at a club, I can't remember the name of it, but she was working at a club in Chicago. And I remember Donny Hathaway was there the first time I met him. He was there that night when I got there. The people were lined up around the block of the club. and it was below zero. She was just that popular. It was amazing to me because it was so cold. The things you have to do to be a road manager are unending. You never know. Whatever it takes to the person that you're working with to get them on stage right, that's what a road manager does. And there are adventures with being a road manager that are quite interesting. As I said, I started with Roberta on a Friday. She flew into D.C. I got into D.C. at 6 o'clock in the morning. I went to her house. Her housekeeper let me in. We stayed there. She was out. She came in. She came in with a purse that was broken and $5,000 in cash. Said, yeah, you need a road manager. You need help. We went and got her visa on Friday. Saturday, we went to New York, and she did a show with Diana Sands and Julian Bond, and I sat in the stand and talked to Julian Bond all day. They thought we were relatives, because that's all I did. Sunday, we went shopping, because the stores were open, I guess, in New York, and we were staying at Joyce Bryant's house. And the next morning, we were on a plane going to Africa with Ike and Tina Turner, the Staple Singers, the Voices of East Harlem, Eddie Harris, Les McCann, Wilson Pickett, and Santana. That was my introduction to being a road manager. That's, like you jumped in the frying pan. And John Levy was on the trip. John Levy was the manager for almost everybody at the time, so it was good to have that kind of security on your first trip. When one of the most interesting things working at the Shrine, doing those shows, was Mr. Bakewell wanted to get the Brotherhood Crusade known to the public, so he put together a group called us, that we were producers for the first show that we called Tribute to a Black Woman. And there was Abby Lincoln, Janet McLaughlin, Beverly Todd, and myself. And Nancy Wilson was the chairman. So we were working on trying to get a script, and we had the workers from the Watts Writers Workshop and the different people, and they would all come in and it wasn't working. So Abby, who was called Amanada at the time, came in with a script, and it started with, the black woman was a blah, 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 and the black woman. Well, what Abby did was she went to the encyclopedia, and where it said Africa, she put the word black woman. And that was our script. And we had Greg Morris, Sidney Poitier, Nancy, Diane Carroll, almost any black actor that was involved in anything, we had them on that particular one. And it was so beautiful because it opened up with, now remember, this is a tribute to a black woman. It opened up with a blank stage with the spotlight on Bill Withers singing Grandma's Hands. So it went from there uphill. Then it went into Greg Morris doing Oscar Brown Jr.'s Bid 'Em In, with Barbara Clark doing, I think her name was that, doing the dancing. And every time he would say, turn around girl, she was doing these dance moves. So that was our opening for that, and it didn't go downhill from there. And then from that, it was successful. We did The Black Man, The Black Family. I think we did about maybe 5 or 6 of those at the Shrine. I have a philosophy, or I would say a mantra for life, that has kept me without those butterflies in my stomach a lot of times, and it's if I worry, will the future change? And that's kept a lot of butterflies out of my stomach over the years, and even to this day. Because when you start getting tense and intense, if you really think about it, you're worrying. So if I worry, is that going to change the future? Not a damn bit. We have 2 beautiful children, and it's interesting, I haven't mentioned my children this long because both of them are extremely talented. Lita is the oldest, who is a mezzo-soprano with the LA Opera Company, and she's been singing with the LA Opera Company since they did their first opera in 1986, when the curtain didn't work. She's been in over 150 operas. She's now teaching at LACHSA, Los Angeles County High School of the Arts, and she's still singing with the Master Chorale and the operas. Scott went into teaching. He taught at Fauché first, then he moved to the Valley to some college schools out there, and he ultimately became principal at Bell High School, and then Roy Ball, and he moved into district director, so he was district director for a while. They've just been wonderful people. They each have 2 kids. Alita has 2 boys, Daniel and Michael, and Scotty has Alan and Kathy. Daniel and Michael are working now at it's called a youth camp in the Valley with Valley College. It's a youth camp hooked up there. Alan is working right now to go into teaching. He's got a scholarship to USC. He's doing some stuff. And Kathy is doing some production work. And she just got married. She's the youngest one there. Well, she's the only girl. As she tells me, I'm the only girl. If I look back on my life, my theme is one that I really can't come up with a solution to. I don't know that I would have a theme other than laid back. You know, I really don't know what to tell people coming into the entertainment world now, because when I was growing up in the entertainment world, we knew certain people. Now there's so many, I don't know who they are. I know that I would like for people to be more alert about who they're dealing with when they're dealing with people, and have a little more respect for themselves and others. There's too much of they, them instead of he, she, I, it. We're all human, and no matter who, what, or where we come from whence we still bleed.